Hey guys, Ryan from Upfront Fitness here. I'm doing a cut and I'm going to take you guys through the process of that, short and sweet today. Just going to share how I go about doing a cut, and there's a couple of reasons why I want to share it. So why am I sharing this? I want to educate. Hopefully this should really help at least some people learn a little bit more about the process and learn a little bit more maybe how you can figure out how to do a cut that suits you or over time, that it's a very individual process. I think that's going to come through really clearly in this. Encouragement. I want to encourage you guys through this process of me sharing kind of my next 8-ish kind of week cut. If that encourages you, great. Entertainment. You might find it entertaining on some level, so good. If I entertain you, that's great. And it's good accountability for me to let other people know in my world who I have a responsibility for to some degree, that I'm going through the same things that they are. And so if I struggle, you can kind of just learn from that, and it helps me stay on track. That I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it to help other people. So straight into it. What's the goal? My goal is to drop about 1% body weight per week. As I get closer to the 8-week mark, that may drop and it may get to 0.5, 7.5, something like that. I'm aiming to go from roughly as about 90 kilos when I started this about a week ago. I'm hoping to get down to about 84, 82 in 8 weeks. And the main reason for this, short and sweet, is I personally like to fluctuate between 82 and 90-ish kilos. We know that the more body fat you accumulate, the higher your body fat percentage, the harder it is to lose that and keep it off. The more you gain, the longer it takes for you to kind of obviously get that weight back down. So I find if I put on weight up to about 90 kilos, I can usually spend about 8 weeks or so and bring that back down to a level where it gives me a good 5 to 7, 8 kilos of gaining room again, and I've just been doing that for a few years and it works really well. So I do that because that's what I like doing. How do I do a cut? Let's get straight into the how-do. So here's a nice little table broken up into 2 columns. On one side, reduce calorie intake. On the other, increase energy expenditure. So that's creating that deficit or widening that gap. So some of the starting principles work to help both. I use an existing routine and an existing structure, particularly around my food and my exercise. So I'll go into that in the next slide. I have core eating principles regardless of the training phase I'm in. Again, next slide. I take before photos and starting measurements. That helps keep me accountable. Like, okay, this is where I'm starting, and I like seeing those numbers move every week. So that really helps keep me on track. I have the capacity to see those numbers move every single week, and so I want to see them moving. I don't like screwing around doing a cut. I want to see the weight come off, and I want to see it come off efficiently. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and again, I'll allude to kind of that. We'll make some comments about that in the next slide as well. But I know at what times of the day or what foods I'm kind of more prone to eating or overeating. And I know where my strengths are. So I play on those. Of course you would. So this is why it's a learning process for you guys. So specifically in regards to reducing calorie intake, I plan out my lunches and dinners ahead of time. My dinners I plan in coordination with my wife and my kids. So it works with when I work, because I work in the evenings. And when they come home, and I plan out my lunches for the week so that every day I kind of have food ready to go. So I plan them out ahead of time. I know roughly how much I'm having. Even if I don't know the calories, I know the quality of food that I'm having. I know whether it's low fat or low carb. You're not going to know that straight up, but it is a skill that you will develop. I prioritize bigger portion sizes of lean meats, vegetables, and reduced carbs and fat. So very simple. Again, next slide I'll go into this a little bit more, but I'll try not to labor the point too much. But you know, it's a lot of chicken, a lot of lean cuts of red meat, fish. I really enjoy my tuna. And as I'm trying to increase the volume of food that I'm having, without it necessarily being heavy on the carbs or heavy on the calories, I'll have more beans and lentils, which are also quite high in protein as well. So it's all just giving me more and more protein without the extra calories from other macronutrients. And I push breakfast back later in the day if possible. So like today I had breakfast around 9. Other people don't have that flexibility. I do. I play to my strengths, and my lifestyle is such I set it up the way that suits my personality, and I like it. But if you're able to eat later at work or whatever, you don't have to eat as soon as you get up. If you're able to, even if it's a protein shake, a lot of my breakfast at the moment while I'm cutting are protein shakes. Shake that sucker up, take it to work. I'm sure you can slip away for 30 seconds and scull that thing. Have breakfast later in the day. If that helps push your other meals back and save you calories, push it back. Increased energy expenditure. I go for a lot more walks and I plan to do a lot more kind of household jobs. So I'll put the headphones in, I'll put the earmuffs on, I try and mow the lawn, I'll vacuum, I'll just do other things. And again, this is where my job has that flexibility because a lot of my job is learning. So I'm listening to lectures, podcasts, discussions, stuff that helps me grow in my work, but I get to do other stuff. I realize other people don't have that flexibility. Again, this is what I do. I'm able to increase my daily activity, so I do. I train 4 days a week. And I've written this point twice, but I stand to do some work, not household work. So when I'm doing work, I'll stand. When I have to think about a problem, thinking about a program for a client, and kind of what I want to do, I'll pace the house. I'll just get up and walk around, and that helps me think for starters. But that helps spend a bit more energy. So I'll get up and I'll just move around, and then when I know what I want to do, I'll sit down and I'll smash it out. So getting up, getting down, that helps me. Again, that's something that I can do in my work. You may not be able to, but do what you can, right? That's the whole point of me writing this out. I'm not going to read through all this. What I want you to get out of this table is that I have a structure, and I've gone through this with a couple of clients already this week, and I thought I need to put it in this presentation because it kind of lies at the core of how a cut probably ought to be done, or a weight loss phase ought to be done. I have a structure for my eating that pretty much never changes. Like the skeleton is always the same, the framework is always the same. So we look at the left column here. Daily eating routine: breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. Every day. That's my flow, almost. The second snack I do ditch when I'm cutting, but otherwise it's the same flow. And the same principles to guide these meals. Breakfast always has to be high protein. Another time I'll go through muscle protein synthesis, but I'm having high protein because I want as many spikes of muscle protein synthesis through the day as possible. I aim for usually 4 of those. So breakfast, high protein, low carb generally, low to moderate fat. When I'm in maintenance and weight gain phases, I'll have more eggs and occasionally bacon and stuff, so that pushes the fat up. But I'm really not usually hungry in the morning. I'm not a good eater in the morning. So high protein and fattier stuff I can tolerate. I'm not big on carbs generally. Lunch is always high protein, fish, chicken, turkey. I always go for the leaner stuff generally. High vegetables. I have at least 2 to 4 colors or 2 to 4 serves on a plate. Doesn't matter what phase I'm in. That is how I have lunch. And it just changes. You can look at this table yourself and go across. But I'll use lunch as an example because dinner's pretty much the same. Lunch, when I'm doing a weight loss, it's always high protein, high veg. I just reduce the carbs. I put other things in there. Like I said, beans and lentils is something I'm really enjoying at the moment. They're low in calories, they're high in protein, they're low in carbs and fat. And they're filling, especially when you make stews and soups out of them. Water-based kind of meals really help fill you up when you're cutting. So I changed that. But the core thing there is, again, veggies, protein. It's there. When I'm maintaining, when I'm gaining, the veggies and protein are still there. The core principle that I have for my lunches, I do not deviate from those principles, are still there. I just have more rice, more pasta, more calories to fuel what I'm doing. That's all that changes, but the principle is the same. This is probably the biggest thing that other people can take from what I do, is you need to have that core structure. Afternoon snack, weight loss, I remove it. Maintenance and weight gain, I adjust it to whatever my goal is at the time. Dinner, same principle as lunch, don't need to repeat it. Snacking in the evening, typically a protein shake. Again, I want that big protein feed before I go to bed. And evenings where my willpower goes down and I just kind of eat what I want, to a degree. We don't have a lot of junk food, chips and chocolate and stuff in the house because they don't fill me up. They're very, very calorie dense. And I'm just left hungry after eating them a lot of the time, so I end up eating more. So my snacks are now things like biscuits and cheese. That's pretty high fat, decent amount of carb and protein, so it fills me up. I'll have sandwiches, other things like that. I don't mind having a pancake every now and then. When I'm cutting, I'll have pancakes. I just plan them in because they're a lot more calorie dense, but I plan them ahead of time. But my evening is where I try and save my calories regardless of what phase I'm in because that's where I like to eat. And it works for me. So that's what I do. All right, my starting point. As of the 23rd of July, my average weight was about 90.2. As of publishing this today, it is the 31st, about just over a week later. I'm already down to about 88.5, 89. A good chunk of that was water weight, I know that, but I have started pretty strong with this cut. I've got my exercise up. I adjusted fairly quickly to cutting back the amount of food I was having. The increased protein and veg and more stewy soup kind of meals that I was having for lunches especially really helped. So I I do kind of know what I'm doing at this stage. There's a lot more I could learn, but knowing what I'm doing does make it easier. So that's why my weight has already come down a bit already. But I'm really getting the energy expenditure up. Like, that really makes a big difference. Waist at the time, 91, hip 105. Now, to finish up this presentation, next slide, I've got some of my before photos. If you don't want to see me shirtless, thank you for watching. You can finish up now. If you're happy to have a look, because I make a few points here, you can have a look. All right, starting point. Oh, the November one. That's that'll come up in a second. Okay, so this is me, 27th of July, last week when I was putting this presentation together. These are some before photos. Okay, so I'll show you how I'm going at the end of the 8 weeks, and we'll see what changes. Ignore my left shoulder. There is actually a defect wrong with that if you don't know the story about my left shoulder. But yeah, that's me at 90 kilos. What's interesting is this is me 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, 90 kilos, right? So this is why it's important. This is why I emphasize to people, gain muscle, really gain muscle. This is the exact same weight, pretty much bang on 90 kilos both times. It definitely wasn't more than 90 both times. And you can just see the difference in the physique and in the shape, even though I'm still carrying an okay amount of body fat in both examples. The 2021 is clearly a lot more, I'm a lot bigger, a lot more defined, a lot more toned. There's just more muscle mass, right? It's really just that simple. So this is why I like the process of gain a chunk, spend a few weeks, a few months losing, and go back up. That's a good system. I think it's going to work for most just Gen Pop people. So let this act as encouragement for you to gain the muscle, cut back the fat, gain the muscle, cut back the fat, and just enjoy your life. So yeah, 90 kilos, the weight on the scale doesn't matter. What matters ultimately, most people care about, is their physique and their performance. That only gets better with more muscle. The scale doesn't really matter, it's just a tool. So thanks for listening, guys. I went probably longer than I wanted to, but I hope this has been educational. And yeah, hit me up with your questions. I really want to know if this has been helpful or not. Take care, everyone.